Welcome everyone to my review of my 2015 Yamaha Bolt. So we'll start off by saying what an awesome bike the Bolt is. I purchased my Bolt in September of 2016, brand new off the showroom floor. Now it's been just over a year of owning it. Figure I would give my thoughts about it. So close to the end of this video, I will rate each category of the bike on an out of 10 basis. Alright, so I'm not going to go super in depth of the specs because you can just look them up online, but I'll hit the major points that I think are important. So starting off, the engine is a air-cooled 942cc V-twin that is advertised as putting out 46.2 horsepower and 52.6 foot-pounds of torque. More on that later, plus numbers can vary, of course, but that's just the general numbers that they give me. So the bike weighs in at a hefty 531 pounds. It's a heavy bike. But while holding a small gas tank of 3.2 gallons, so long road trips, yeah. Now, as you can see, my Bolt isn't stock, so take that into account. Hence, why the seat height is now definitely not the stock 27.2 inches. It's probably more in the range of 31, 32 inches for the seat height now with the cafe seat on it. I still need to measure it. And just summing up, the MSRP, what goes for when it was selling, because this is a 2015, is $7,990, essentially $8,000. Alright, enough about specs. Let's move on to what you really click on this video for. I will try and make this as short and inclusive as I can, but let's start things off. The Bolt is an amazing platform to make it your own. With all the third-party parts available to buy, there's something out there for you. If you're wondering what all mods I've done to it, I do have a video on that. I will link that in the description if you're interested. But for just talking about the bike, I'm just going to start from the front of the bike and move to the back. Okay, first off, so tires. These are still the stock tires that the bike came with. They're the Bridgestone Excedra Maxes. Well, let's just say they suck. So up front you have a 190/19 and a 150/80/16 in the rear. Now the reason why they suck, two words: speed and wobble. Like on my other bikes, I always test to see how stable the bike is when you take your hands off for a quick second just to test to see if it's stable enough. On the Bolt, take your hands off and well, your front's gonna shake a lot. My R3 and Grom, well, they don't do that. So the tires do have a sort of role making your bike speed wobble. I've looked online, make sure it wasn't just the bike's not like handling right, like suspension's not right. No, people have been saying in the forums and stuff that it's something to do with the tires, with the way that the tread is made. So easy fix, but hey, I mean, it's kind of scary when you're first out there and suddenly it speed wobbles on you. So then also for rain riding, prepare to feel unstable in turns. I can't count how many times my rear lost traction while turning. Keep in mind, this is in the rain, but I'm not going crazy scraping pegs. But I'm being cautious on turns since it's not dry, so I just take it at my own pace, feel more comfortable. But even then, it still likes to slide a bit. So, which if you were a new rider on this bike, it can be kind of scary. But since we're on the topic of handling, braking, brakes on this bike are actually really good. For a bike weighing this much, you need the stopping power, and I'm glad these brakes are really good. Now, lean angle, the bike does struggle with some scraping. Well, maybe a lot. I scrape quite often because sometimes I'm actually pushing it, just trying to take the turns a little faster, just having some fun. But other times I'm just cruising and I still scrape. So prepare to scrape. I know it already seems like this video is complete hate on this bike, but rest assured, I'm just giving my honest opinion. I still absolutely love this bike. I would have kept it this long if I didn't like it. Yeah, okay, moving along. Now the weight distribution while riding. You feel the whole weight of the bike up to around 3 miles per hour. Once you get moving up to the speed limit per se, it feels amazing. You don't even realize you're actually on this heavy of a bike. It's super easy to turn and control as well. It handles good for its weight. So suspension is up next. This is the base model of the Bolt, not the R spec, so I do not have those upgraded rear suspension, the gold looking things. In reality, they really don't make a difference for me. It only makes a difference if you're like over like 210, 220 pounds. I didn't have the need to have those, so I That's why I got the base model. I had no need for it. On this model, the front forks are kind of squishy. The rear suspension is perfect for me. It handles bumps like a charm. It doesn't hurt. But the front could use some work. During hard braking, the front does sink in quite a bit. But it still gets the job done though. You're not going to plow through people, but you just have to be prepared that it will sink in. Almost forgot to mention, I am 5'6" and could flat foot the stock seat on both sides. So shorter riders, don't worry, we can flat foot it. And look what I did to it now. Now I can't flat foot it on both sides. Just one side. But that's enough about handling and how it feels. But now a big thing that brings some controversy across Bolt owners, the engine. I will start off by saying this bike is advertised as a urban cruiser, not your typical long road trips and highway riding like most bigger bikes that have like 1300 cc's like the Yamaha Striker or like a typical Harley. Now that's out of the way, let's start with, does it have enough power? Short answer, yes. Could it benefit by having a bit more? Couldn't hurt. Now I've taken this on decently long rides, mostly highway, of course. It was about 400 miles in one day. Speed limits were ranging from 75 to all the way up to 85 miles per hour. So I didn't really have a problem with that, but a big complaint that I hear Bolt owners say is that it sucks on the highway. For me, it's a yes and no. If you're planning on buying this to take on huge road trips, cross country, that sort of deal, I would highly advise against getting it. Now if you're getting it like what I was looking for, a nice looking Sportster, a little commuter, slightly longer distance, but nothing too crazy. Well, it's perfect for that type of riding style since it is called an urban cruiser. I commute on this to work and it rides like a dream. It handles great. It's honestly great for city riding, back roads, and a little of highway riding. I need to elaborate on the highway riding. It doesn't have an RPM gauge, but you know if you're in the higher range or not. Going about 70 to 75 miles per hour, I can tell it's definitely up there in the revs. Probably 65% of the range if I had to guess. Oh, forgot to mention, it is a 5-speed. So initiate the non-existent 6th gear you wish you had. But does this leave you with enough space to overtake? Yes, unless the cars are going 85, 90 miles per hour, which in Texas, surprisingly, they like doing that. So if you live in an area where the highway is one of the main ways to get places, and the speed people go are typically 80 85, the Bolt wouldn't be my first choice for that. I mean, it could do it, but you might be putting a lot of stress on the engine at the high RPMs. Now, if the highway speeds were like 70, 75, overtaking and just cruising on the highway, it's not a problem. Once you get around past that 80, 85, you don't really have that much overtaking power. You can still overtake, it's just people will probably be going 90, so just be aware of that. Alright, so still on the engine per se, now it's time for the transmission. So in my mind, the transmission is one of the greatest strengths of the Bolt. It is super smooth, easy to shift, and runs so clean. Now this bike is pretty much the Japanese version of the more popular Harley Iron 88.3, but in my opinion, this one is better. Iron 88.3 riders bring the hate. But seriously, both bikes are awesome, but I prefer this one a little bit more. There are a ton of reasons why I chose this, but there's a ton of videos of people comparing the two, so I'm not really going to go into that. For the most part, I agree with most of the videos that compare the two. But to sum up the engine section, it has some get up and go, but it's not going to be anything crazy. The transmission is your friend. Solid build from Yamaha, but one thing I need to add, if you get this bike, you have to get exhaust. My exhaust adds so much more depth and feel to the bike, plus added some extra power to the bike so that doesn't hurt. But next on the list is the looks of the bike, and man, this bike is one good looking bike. The color of the tank is what put the finishing touch for me to buy this bike. This sort of metallic candy apple color is definitely one of my favorite colors. If you haven't noticed, I like the color black and red mix. I mean, it's a good mix. It's one thing seeing this color in the videos and photos just like this one, but seeing it in person, it's on another level, to be honest. When the bike was stock, it still looked amazing. Just small things like most stock bikes, like the turn signals and just the fender, need to be changed, but the bike as a whole was a solid choice for me. There are some small things that you might notice if you own a Bolt. You might relate to this, but the stock Bolts have this awkward space, you might say, between the gas tank and the stock seat design. It's like a 5-inch, maybe 6 inches of gap between the two, which I thought was really interesting why they did that, and not just make the gas tank just a little bit bigger. Who knows? But next is the air intake, and man, this thing is huge. It does get in my way at times if I want to tuck in or something, so that's a drawback definitely, is the air intake. It's huge. Left side you can put your knee in just fine, but on the right side it can't fully tuck in. And then next up is the stock speedometer. It looks so simple. I love the look of it, but the functionality, I don't know about the newer Bolts, but on the 2015, this one, if you're in direct sunlight, good luck seeing it. The sun can hit it just at the right angle, and you won't be able to see anything on the screen. Now, I don't really look at the speedometer while riding, so it's not that big of a deal, but if you want to know what speed you're going, just in case there's a cop or you're just trying to keep up or something, whatever the reason is, sometimes it's hard to see in the sun, and when the sun isn't hitting it, you can see it just fine. So it's a hit and miss on that one for me. Now some of y'all will see what I said and say, he doesn't even like this bike at all. Well, that's not true. I'm already going to say it's awesome, but I'd rather give a better understanding of what you are buying if you are considering this bike. But now on to the numbers and my ratings of the bike. Here are the categories I'll be rating the bike on a 10-point scale, 10 being absolutely perfect and 0 the worst. So number 1, aesthetics, 8.5 out of 10. Number 2, suspension, 7 out of 10. Number 3, engine, 7 out of 10. Number 4, brakes, 8 out of 10. Number 5, transmission, 9 out of 10. Number 6, handling, 7.5 out of 10. Reliability, number 7, 10 out of 10. Number 8, comfort, 8 out of 10. That brings out a combined score 65 out of 80, and that percentage is 81.2%. So my reasons for each category being the rating that they got. So number 1, I rate aesthetics as 8.5 out of 10 because the stock parts like the turn signal, fender, air intake, mirrors, the typical stock bike parts that no one usually keeps, I have to include that. I mean, for the stock parts, it's not that big of a deal, but it's the air intake is the biggest thing. That's why I got 8.5. Number 2, suspension, got 7 out of 10 for being that the front is squishy under hard braking. An easy fix would be getting a stiffer spring in it, and it would be perfect then. So number 3, the engine got 7 out of 10 for lacking some highway speeds, overtaking. A couple of fixes would be either longer gearing, that would be the easier option, and the other option would be adding a 6th gear, which, yeah, why would you do that? Next up is the brakes. It got 8 out of 10 for the rear brake, could use a little upgrade. I know most of your stopping power is up front, but a little extra brake power couldn't hurt in a heavier bike like this. Number 5 was the transmission. 9 out of 10 for how solid it is, but no real drawbacks besides being a 5-speed. Oh, how I wish this was a 6-speed. Number 6, the handling, got 7.5 out of 10 for the poor stock tires and how it handles in rain. Easy fix, just get new tires. That's what I'm planning on doing soon whenever I need new tires. I'm just letting these run out because they're still good for commuting. Number 7 is the reliability. 10 out of 10 for, well, one word, Yamaha. 4K service intervals, belt driven. Literally, the oil change is super easy. There are really little maintenance needed, especially since it's belt driven. No lube and chains. And then lastly, number 8 was comfort. It got 8 out of 10 for both stock and my current seat setup. I can last about 160 miles nonstop before I need to stretch and not get cramps because of the seat. But the stock seat was super nice. So yeah, in total it got 81.2 in my mind, but this doesn't mean it's terrible. There's some things you should change and it would be even better ride. Get some new better tires instead of the springs up, and it would change the bike up to a solid 90% bike in my mind. Now the question is this a good starter bike? And my answer would be absolutely. This is wonderful. Being able to flat foot your first bike is a big confidence booster, especially for shorter riders. Is it on the heavier side for first bikes? For sure is, but It's not that hard to control. After you get the feel of the weight, everything will come pretty naturally. So next is if I had to choose again, like if I was buying another bike and I didn't have the Bolt, would I still choose the Bolt, or would I choose something like the Yamaha Striker or a similar bigger cruiser like that? For me, this is the perfect size and amount of power I need for the streets. I have no need to have a huge bike, but I definitely want to try out the bigger Yamahas like the Striker and see how those handle. But yes, I would still choose this bike again if I had the option to repick. Well, this concludes the review of my 2015 Yamaha Bolt. I hope this has helped some who have had questions or were just interested in the bike. If you're on the edge about getting this bike, test ride it, see how you like it. I think you'll like it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Later. Yeah.